Hello, hello. I am back. I was having some technical difficulties earlier with stream, so I wanted to just kind of go back through with the introduction to the Constitution. We'll go more into that later, but I just want to at least kind of give you a brief introduction to it. And then I also want to read to you this Hunted by MAGA story about the MAGA stalking and illegal surveillance that I'm also going through, that someone else had the courage to write a story about as well, because it does take a lot of courage to speak out on this. And but really, when your back's against the wall and you keep getting continuously attacked and it just doesn't stop, there has to be something said about it. So anyway, so let me go into the U.S. Constitution. Okay. All right. Okay. The Constitution. So, all right. Okay. Let's do it like that. Okay. So the U.S. Constitution is the foundational document of American democracy, outlining the structure of government, individual rights, and the principles of governance. Key components of the Constitution. So the first part is the preamble. The introduction explains the purpose of the Constitution, stating that it aims to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, which we're not seeing going on in the country right now, unfortunately. Provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to all citizens. So, and we are a nation of immigrants, so a lot of things are not being followed, but it is up to us, we the people, to uphold these standards. Whether or not this regime in the White House wants to or not, it is up to us to challenge that as citizens, because we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, whether they like it or not. That is the truth. We have too much tyranny going on right now, and out there, so they think this is normal. And well, I don't know how they can think it's normal, but they do, because they've been indoctrinated that way. So, and that's what we're seeing a lot in our youth. And I lived in Florida, so I know exactly. They started with the book bans there and everything else, and it's heavily indoctrinated down there. So, anyway, I am not there anymore, thank goodness. Thank goodness, because that is one abusive state. Okay, so anyway, so the next part of it is the articles. The Constitution consists of 7 articles that detail the framework of the government. Article 1 establishes the legislative branch, which is Congress, responsible for making laws. It is divided into 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Article 2 establishes the executive branch, which is headed by the president, who enforces laws and manages the government. Article 3 establishes the judicial branch, which interprets laws, and includes the Supreme Court, who, right now is, yeah, anyway, we all know. But Article 4 to 7 covers the relationships between the states, the process for amending the Constitution, and the Constitution's supremacy over any state laws. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution guarantee individual rights such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press, as well as the right to bear arms and protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. Amendments to the Constitution. The Constitution has been amended 27 times, with each amendment addressing specific issues or is what abolished slavery. And then the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. So that's a wonderful thing. So I am not really sure why there's any women out there that wouldn't want that right to vote, but I respect how they feel as long as they respect how I feel. Women fought long, and I am so glad that slavery was also abolished, because to me that's an absolute abomination. So, and a big stain on our history. So the importance serves as the supreme law of the land, ensuring that government operates within a framework that protects individual liberties and maintains a system of checks and balance needs while preserving the core principles of democracy. For a more detailed breakdown of each article and amendment, you can refer to resources like the Simplified Constitution, which I will probably do that tomorrow, or actually it's already tomorrow, but later on this evening after I get some sleep and spend some time with my child. And 27 amendments simplified. That would be something we could do, and the U.S. Constitution simplified, which we should do all of that, and the Bill of Rights too. Yeah, so we'll talk about that tomorrow for sure in a little more detail, but still simplified, so it's not too overwhelming for people. But every single American citizen, should know and be aware of the Constitution, especially in such a trying moment that we're in right now. So yeah, that's the Constitution introduction. And I will also read to you Hunted by MAGA. This is a story, like I said, of somebody who had been illegally stalked and surveillanced by MAGA, and it was a real problem for them. And I am also having that problem too. So some of the language that was used on this individual has also been used on me too. And I look forward to continuing to share my story with you all as I keep going, because there's lots of different facets to the last my whole lifetime. So I look forward to sharing a lot of that with you. And but the last 10 years since this, MAGA influence has been in our country, my child with having special needs and myself being a single mother for the last 7 years, I have a story to tell, that's for sure. It's definitely impacted our lives, and especially also having moved to Florida when I did. It was not a good time to move to Florida, and I wasn't really as aware that it would be such an issue as it is. But we all know how the DeSantis administration is. But when you're living it and you're being preyed upon by that administration down there, there's just no winning. There's no winning with these people. So I was glad to leave there, although I'm still having issues here in California where I'm at. And I have been reaching out to as many resources as I possibly can. And yeah, quite a story there. But we'll go more into that later. So let me read to you. This is called My Hunted by MAGA story. It's about a 15-minute read, so bear with me. How MAGA illegally stalked and surveilled me, and instead of the police stopping their illegal activity and informing me about it so I could make a complaint, seemed to have just taken that illegally gained information and gotten a police investigation going against me. Please link your story in the comments to this story, and I will probably be doing that once I put all the pieces together and turn it into one big story. I've been journaling, and I have little pieces all over the place, so I need to put it all together, and could really use some legal assistance right now as well, being in the situation that I'm in, being financially exploited the way I have been and abused. Let's see here. So I'll move on, and here we go with his story. Let me turn down my music a little bit. I love Stevie Nicks, but we're going to read the story right now. Okay. So in 2020, I moved into a somewhat remote country town. I've always liked country towns and country people for their general niceness and friendliness. I am an anti-Trumper, as I could see the lies and corruption from the very start. And I am also a veteran of the first Cold War. So I could see how Putin was using him to sabotage our country. The years during which he had taken the mask off and showed who and what he really was, how badly he was damaging our country, and how he was turning us against each other under the guise of political speech, was setting me off on a fairly regular basis. In private, where I didn't think anyone could hear me blowing off steam because that's common courtesy, also getting to understand a situation and what you think about it takes standing out, especially if it's as big as how someone is deliberately destroying our country. So I definitely wanted to keep my pissed off sounding outs about the subject private. So I made no mention of my thoughts to anyone who might be for Trump. Not my job to talk politics with strangers, and I try to keep unpleasantness out of my talks with friends. I had started posting my thoughts on social media one time, but backed off because more outrage wasn't going to do anything to help. So everything was fine with the people I rented from, and I got myself moved in. Oops. But I immediately hit it off wrong with the lady of the house next door. And I believe that's where the whole MAGA stalking movement got its opening to target me. And something very similar happened to me here in California as well, shortly after I moved in. So I'll be sharing that too, but not tonight or this morning. Anyway, when I moved in, I had major trouble with internet service. Me too, actually. And got the Comcast automated help system endlessly looping me around for hours. I don't talk angry to people, but I make a big, huge exception to that system. About 3 hours in, I was fuming and cursing the system and its makers. And I can understand that a little bit, So this was overheard by the neighbor lady. It took her about 10 seconds to start calling the landlord and to get me evicted for being violent and dangerous. And this kept up from the day I moved in until the day I left. No private sounding outs from my side was too small to trigger a response. I even hurt my back unexpectedly in the garage and yelped out in pain. And that was another phone call to the landlord about me. Funny, I hurt my back too when I lived in Florida. Anyway, I know this because the heroic in keeping things real. I can't count the times I heard him telling the landlord there was no problem. Some people are just like that. Great guy, and I wish we could have been better friends. But paranoia is contagious. It really is. Soon the entire family could barely make eye contact or say hello in passing. No kids, that's illegal. And then one day, something very bad started happening with them. I saw one of the kids pressing their phone to to my downstairs door. Now that gave me a shock and then some pause. I do reserve the right to talk freely in private, and the sheer corruption and sabotage on display from Trump and his parasites had been making me furious to watch. And in my new place, I was reasonably sure we couldn't hear each other's words. I could hear them arguing from time to time, but not the meaning. So I'd continued to sound out my thoughts and vent my emotions in private when I got so pissed off by what I was seeing. I had trouble settling down to do work, enjoy some entertainment, or go online and chat with people. Not long after that, I walked by my inside door to the garage and heard someone scramble down the garage side stairs away from it. Yeah, that's not good. That door was in my living room where I watched TV, used the internet for entertainment, and got pissed off about what I saw on the news and had said a few things more than once. So I found out I was being probably recorded in my home by my neighbor's kids. That gave me pause, and I thought about talking to their parents. But as parents, if they knew, the parents would set their kids straight, right? Or maybe not. Talk when your neighbors, if noise is the problem, the first thing you would do is talk to them and ask them to keep it down, right? I make sure to let all my neighbors know I'll do what I can to accommodate them. I I even cat foot around squeaks in the floor because that carries across apartments and there's no telling if it's disturbing someone. And uh, I'd have been embarrassed as heck about them overhearing me chewing over what Trump was doing and getting my head around what it meant. So they could just call me, text me, leave a note on my door, or knock on the door and have a conversation, right? Or not. Or they could call someone other than the landlord. And they had illegal recordings of me venting my outrage at the betrayal of my country. At a time when Trump was still president and such words had been taken seriously by any and all MAGA and could even be taken seriously by the FBI. It wasn't long before I noticed the outside surveillance. The same white pickup with a sticker and scratch on the same fender, showing up at the same places I went to at the same random days and time, such as that liquor store twice, where a heavy bearded guy got out and walked into the store with me both times, and sat in the truck in the parking lot until I left. Obviously unlikely, but that could be coincidence. But not at the Walmart where an older gray haired man sitting way in the far end of the row in a truck looked up from his magazine as I walked past and glared at me with open hatred in his eyes. Glared at me with open hatred. That was a shock and a big confirmation that this was not a professional surveillance. Was this a MAGA sympathizer in the police, or was it just MAGA? There, I might be in danger. MAGA and QAnon are happy to support each other's delusions, and QAnon believers are waiting for the storm, quote unquote. FYI, that is a storm of blood in which they drag all their political enemies out of their houses and murder them in the street. And that's how they make America great again. It's not a good feeling to realize someone watching you might just be waiting for a call or text to start the storm with you as a target right in front of them. And then January 6th happened. I saw it on TV and sat down to take it all in. I cannot describe the level of shock and fury I felt as to where we had ended up, how we had somehow allowed these people to do this. And then I found myself on my feet, moving to the door with my keys in my hand. Even though I knew I was a full day away by any means of transport, I had to will myself to stop my feet and accept that I could not get there in time. It took time to accept it, too. I walked around focusing on my breathing, stood in place, controlling my anger, and walked around some more. And then I sat down again and I watched January 6th happen. I absolutely changed that day. For a long while after, I no longer cared that I was being surveilled or what anyone would think of my words in private, or sometimes even what I was saying. All that mattered was it was in private, safe to say anything I wanted because rights and free speech, and that I did not keep the words in because I only got more angry if I did. Believe me, I had been trying. I calmed eventually, but it was only because I could pour out my anger in private at the whole complex of grandiose corruption and petty evil that had just changed the history of my country forever. Eventually means many moons, too. It was only when I moved away from there in early 2022 that I really started to get back to myself. It's taken this long for me to restore my shape as a person and quiet my urge to vent. Well, okay, I still vent a little. Uh, most of the most of these people are still in the news daily, but no more than anyone else, I think. But moving away was a good idea, I had thought. I had no more personal reason to stay and had shifted to fully remote work. So I was a digital nomad if I wanted to be. So I could leave all that behind, lose the pressure of knowing people and trying to surveil you in your home and your travels. Be sadder but wiser, etc. And learn to internalize my thoughts from now on. If me chewing on things, even where I think I can't be heard, is going to bother people, I can fix that. And then came MAGA again. I moved from my apartment to a temp location, well placed to visit my family and friends. I had a hard time renting a short term monthly, but found a pretty good one and went for it. The landlord gave me the walkthrough and talk through, and all would be fine for the short time. Then we talked further, and I discovered my landlord was a hardcore MAGA. But at the same time, through the conversational crisscross, they learned that I had put in a lot of effort into getting Biden elected. But that's okay, I thought. They seem reasonable and doesn't even live here. So there's no chance for conflict. I didn't know about kiwi farms or how far flung MAGA's net was. A couple of weeks later, I was walking into a quick serve coffee shop and someone approached me asking about my out of state plate. The person said they had lived in that state for years and chatted me up about myself and what I was doing there. After we closed the conversation, I went into the coffee shop. It took a while, about 15 minutes. When I came out, that person was sitting in their car next to mine, talking fast into their phone, with that big, fat, maniacal MAGA grin on their face. Not a big smile or normal human happiness. It was that crazy, wide, clenched jawed grin. I got a sick feeling in my stomach and took a couple of minutes to get myself settled into the drive. That person had never stopped their fast talking and never changed their look. Not conclusive by any means, but right after that, things changed with the landlord. The tone in the text got curt and openly sarcastic and even contemptuous sometimes. I'd mention a reasonable this or that and would get a problematic or resistive answer back. And then in the middle of the month, a crew of 4 poster boys for the Young Beard MAGA Club moved in down the hall. And then I found a child sitting next to my door with an adult cell phone. They looked terrified to be discovered, bolted down the stairs, and huddled into the corner staring at me. Was I being recorded here too? Was it? Uh, what is wrong with these people? and the landlord visited on minor business, but kept asking me to keep the curtains wide open to let the sun in. And the same thing actually happened to me here in California too, shortly after I moved in. And I will talk about that as well later. But yeah, open your blinds, let the sunlight in. So that's a MAGA talking point. It was the dead, and I didn't know that at first until I discovered this story, and I was like, whoa. I knew something was weird about it, but when I read this, it really confirmed it for me. And he did also tell me that he was a Trumper. So anyway, it was the dead of winter, below 0 degrees, and I kept the curtains closed to keep the heat in like a sane person. I don't think he should have to explain himself. But anyways, they repeated this on multiple visits. Sure, yeah, that's not all coincidence happening at once. There's parking across from the windows up high enough to look almost straight in. I just lived with it until it was time to leave out. It killed my family visits, though. I'm not bringing these people's attention to loved ones for any reason. And then came MAGA again, and again. This time, the FBI report. My next stop was a jumping off point to my new destination. I had shipped my belongings to avoid driving again, and I was staying in a hotel, and something happened immediately. The manager of the hotel and another unknown person stood across the way from my hotel room watching my window for over 2 hours in the evening, doing nothing but standing, watching, and talking. I heard this from the manager. Seems like the investigation is taking a long time. They don't usually take this long. And this from the unknown person. Is there anything I need to know for safety? Good God, what is going on with these people? I had planned to wait for my shipping to arrive. It was a miserable shipping experience, which I will never repeat. But that motivated me to move on to my next destination immediately and come back for my possessions. So I did. I got to my destination, a nice place far away from all the nonsense, with a culture of nice, polite people and a reputation for good law and order. And I came back for my possessions to discover most boxes looked like they'd been through a war, and one box was missing, the one with the bulky desktop computer. All boxes were labeled the same with no distinguishing anything. But that one was missing, and it didn't show up for 6 more weeks. When it did, I FedExed it up from the shipping company, then took it straight to a computer shop and had them open the box and image the drives for forensics. I got another sick feeling in my stomach. Unlike the other boxes, it looked nearly pristine, like it hadn't been handled the same. And the forensics showed a file on the computer created by Windows during the time it was being shipped. Someone had turned the computer on while it was in shipping. I documented the file, safely stored the images, and then I filed one FBI report about the surveillance incidents that could be investigated, and one for computer tampering. I also notified the shipping company to keep their records for investigation, but I still hadn't heard anything from the FBI in 7 months. Nothing. I don't even know how to contact them for an update. And now for more MAGA, except with police surveillance too. At least I'd gotten to my destination. That was something big. I could relax now, and I did. Caught up on my sleep, got my place somewhat furnished, got back to work, and started learning my way around. And then the most obvious, clumsy stalker followed me around a store, then nearly caused a car crash trying to follow me on the road. I'll add a link to my complaint that I wrote up for the police here when I get it posted. My reaction was, OMG, they're here too? I did some checking. Yes, there was a MAGA presence in this area. They'd done some convoying in the past, not well received here. Also, there'd been a surge of MAGA moving into towns east of where I was staying. and there were multiple, there were multiple violent crimes in the news here. A multiple murder, a bust of a drug gang with a side of guns, etc. And this article was written by victims of MAGA. So I really appreciated finding this because, like I said, I have experienced and I am experiencing the abuse and the stalking right now. And I experience the same talking points, like I said, and I will talk about that another time. But I just wanted to get this story out there for you all, and we'll continue tomorrow with tonight with a little more Constitution and Bill of Rights, and perhaps I can start opening up a little bit my stalking experience that I've been going through. So lots of stuff going on. Lots of stories to tell, and it's not like it's really fun or anything, but probably a good idea to start talking about these things now. So I hope you all have a good night. Get some rest. Lock your doors, lock your windows, and stay safe, okay? All right. Good night.